this city that we have committed to help try and grow the country that allows us to be here and to perform our governmental duties in freedom. We thank you for the council, we thank you for the mayor, we thank you for our city manager and for the new direction that you've given us. Please bless this body, bless this city, and bless this state. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And let me remind everyone tonight to please speak into the microphone. We did have, that was the only complaint from our last meeting, is that we couldn't be heard, so if you will, just make sure you're speaking into the microphone. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from previous meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. And all in favor, let's raise your hand and say aye. Okay. Motion passed 5-0. The next item on the agenda is approval of agenda or motion to amend, and I believe what we're going to do, we're going to remove one of the items from the consent agenda, which is item C, and move it to discussion, which is item 8. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to move a consent item to a discussion item on
Okay.
8.
Let's see, okay. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, the next part of the meeting, number 5 is public hearing, and we have several items on this. The first being section A, which is a second reading of an ordinance to amend administration, taxation, and finance. And I'm going to let our attorney give a brief. He did this at the last meeting, but just give a brief description of what this ordinance is in reference to.
Yeah, this is second reading of this proposed ordinance, and it's one of a few ordinances that the Mayor and Council's been presented with. It's basically just a housekeeping ordinance to clarify the role of the city administrator in this case with regard to the collection and enforcement of taxes and whatnot, and to reflect the changes that were made to the city's organizational structure.
Since this is part of,
Should I make a
yes,
statement?
yes, please.
As you go through this, you'll notice that it doesn't have a page number
Mhm.
to be able to pull it right up. And I request that in the future that the agenda be sent out with page numbers so that we can say if we want to look at it at this meeting, turn to page so-and-so.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that. So on this, as it's a public hearing, do we have anyone from the audience who has a comment or question in reference to this item? Okay. If not,
Move the approval.
yeah, motion to approve is Dr. Whaley. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. And let's do a roll call vote on this one. Dr. Whaley? Yes. Angie? Jack?
Yes.
Yes.
Christie and Bill Bivens.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a motion to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation of the July the 5th, 2022 to approve the rezoning of a portion of parcel owned by Karen Stevens, who is here in the audience. And what I want to do at this time, I want to have our city administrator give a brief description of what's taking place with this, and then we will give an opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against. Okay?
Okay. This is a request to rezone approximately 0.18 acres from R2 to R3 zoning. It was reviewed at the Planning Commission meeting July 5th, and basically they approved it with several conditions. One would be the development on the 1.8 acres will conform to the survey that was submitted by the applicant, which they did submit. 2 is that the R3 zoning only applies to the 0.18 acres. The original request was for 0.58 acres, but after discussions with the applicant and the Planning Commission and staff, it was reduced down to 1.8 acres. And then finally, that the applicant needs to provide a revision to the meets and bounds description, which they've also provided in the package. So it's recommended that the city council approve the recommendation submitted by the planning commission.
Okay. So at this time, I would like for ask anyone who would like to speak in favor of this rezoning to step up to the mic and give your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
So Karen was in here?
If you want to, yes, it's up to you. We don't. So I'll close that part. Anyone opposed to this rezoning, you have the opportunity to speak now. Okay. Looks like no one is opposed, so I would ask for a motion to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation.
This is on her lot now, right? What we're doing here is she has a lot. She wants to build a garage and a mother-in-law suite above it, am I correct?
That's
So
correct.
it's attached to her lot,
Well, now it'll be subdivided.
so it'll be separate from her lot.
Right.
And we're zoning this, R,
Just that piece with the garage and the mother-in-law.
which gives her what height?
Do you recall what the height is?
Okay. Step right up to the podium, will you? Thank you.
Start all over again, since your name, residence, and then start all over, please.
Karen Stevens, 145 Ash Street, Blue Ridge, Georgia. And it's a garage. It does have like a suite upstairs. And so on my parcel, which is .58, that, I didn't know you could ask for just that zoning for just the garage. So when the original application, when you asked for the zoning, but I was not clear on that. So then, when they said, well, it would only be able to be, you couldn't build more units, you couldn't make it wider. So the whole reason for the parcel to be that way was simply because on the, R3, like the, what is it called, the total amount of space you need inside lines to keep it right with the, I don't know the correct word, but when you keep it in the boundaries, would have to be 10,000 square feet at R2, but at R3, it allows the garage to be within everything that's in the code. If it's within all the requirements.
And this does, Eric,
Yes.
it follows the guidelines and the height and,
Yeah.
And they gave it to conditional that it could not be changed, like I couldn't build it up or do anything different, a different use, it couldn't turn into something else. If anybody, including myself, they said it would have to come back, and I was like, okay, and then they said you can't change your house to R3, and I'm not trying to, so I'm fine with that.
okay.
So the conditions that were placed, protect the city
And those were the conditions she just stated?
They're in your
Right,
packet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Inside, if you were standing on my back deck,
Mm-hmm.
then the height of my garage is probably, like, it's in my sight, so it's not higher than the house.
Okay.
Okay, since we kind of went off off track there, I would again offer the opportunity for anyone who is opposed to this to speak. Okay. So we'll go back. Council, you guys have questions answered? Okay. So do I have a motion to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation? Let's do that part again.
Yes, I will make a motion that we accept the planning commission's recommendation for this parcel, 1.8 acres, from
Two to
R2 to R3,
okay,
I'm sorry, and I don't know the address, so.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, and I'm
It's .18, not .8.
0.18 acres.
0.18.
So I'll make a motion that we, accept the planning commission's recommendation to rezone the parcel 0.18 acres from R2 to R3.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, Okay, let's do this again. And let's do a roll call vote. Dr. Whaley? Yes. Angie?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Kristen? And Bill?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, the next item is a motion to issue a non-exclusive franchise for garbage collection service in the city in the name of Allen Disposal. And, if you will, I will let you give a little bit of information about this too. Eric, please.
The ordinance under solid waste provides that the city council has to approve the non-exclusive franchises for solid waste in the city for someone to pick up solid waste. Currently, what the ordinance says that based on population, that there would be one company per 400 residents, so that would come out to 3 companies servicing the city. Currently, there is 3 companies. One company did not renew their application or pay their franchise fees, so there was an opening. This individual company came in and applied for the opening, and that's why they're on the agenda, and I believe they're present here. And it's recommended that the council approve the solid waste non-exclusive franchise.
Okay. Do I have anyone who wants to speak in favor of this? Unless you want to. Yeah, it's our recommendation, so you really don't. Is there anyone who is opposed? Okay, so we'll take the recommendation so we can get a motion.
Move approval.
Okay, so Dr. Wiley made the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second. Go ahead, Bill.
Bill? Okay, Bill, Bivens second. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Bill Whaley? Yes. Angie?
Yes.
Bill, well, I'm sorry, Jack?
Yes.
And Christie?
Yes.
And Bill?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay, the next item on the agenda is an ordinance of the City of Blue Ridge establishing surplus property regulations. And this is basically just to help us get rid of, and I'll let you explain this as well, properties that we have, which we need to sell, you know, cars, et cetera, so. Let you explain that one, and this is the first reading.
Does that include the stuff that the park that was sitting out there that we said we'd get rid of and
Yes,
stuff? So
yes.
basically, it's a lawnmower and beat up old cop cars and stuff.
It's any property that the city owns. So currently, including land. Currently, there's nothing on the books that requires it to go before the city council. This ordinance requires anything over a certain amount that the city owns in terms of property, whether it be vehicles or land, would have to come back to the council before it's disposed.
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna add is that it's really state law that governs how we dispose of real and personal property. But what this does is it provides the starting point. So the starting point is, for the mayor and for the city council to decide and declare something as surplus. And then once that declaration is made, then the city administrator goes through the process under state law for getting rid of the property. But this would be the starting point of the process.
Do we have any questions or comments from the audience? Okay. So that would be considered our first reading. We don't have to vote on that at this point, so. Okay, the next item is again in reference to Karen Stevens' property, and this is just a zoning ordinance amendment to the map, to our zoning map. And, this would be the first reading on this. Oh, did we? Did I skip that? Never mind, I skipped one, thank you. Let's go back to E. And this one is an ordinance to amend the solid waste of the code of the city of Blue Ridge, Georgia, with respect to applications for those and for the issuance of certificates of public convenience and necessity for garbage collection within the city. And I'll let you explain this one too. We're actually cleaning up some of these ordinances, so this is what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This ordinance basically clarifies, it makes a few changes with respect to the application process for getting a certificate of convenience to engage in garbage collection in the city, and then clarifies the process by which those things get approved. But it's another, what I would call just kind of a housekeeping ordinance.
And this is also a first reading, so do we have any comments from council or audience? Yep.
Basically, the changes are in green. Striking that language and adding clarifying language.
Okay, and that's a first reading, we will not need to vote on that. And now back to Karen Stevens again. So Karen, this is actually the zoning ordinance amending the zoning map for the city. Do you want to explain that, Eric, again, go into that, or check?
So our zoning ordinance says that changes to the zoning map will be done by ordinance. And our charter provides that ordinances require both first and second reading in order to adopt an ordinance. So you have the vote to approve the rezoning, but then the ordinance to actually make the official change to the official zoning map is here for a first reading tonight, and then will be considered at the next meeting. So it's kind of a two-step process, but that will then in effect change the actual zoning map.
Okay, do I have any comments from the audience? Okay. So that's considered a first reading, so we'll move on next to our consent agenda. We will leave our hearings, public hearings, and move to the next item, consent agenda. We have now 3 items, A, B, and D, as we move C to the discussion item. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Whalen?
Yes.
Angie Arp? Yes. Jack?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
And Bill?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Okay, the next item is action items, and we have none at this time. Discussion items, we've added C under that. And we'll give a brief description of what we're doing with this particular section. And I will let Eric, since he's been working with both Rick Flukert and Brian Higgins on this project.
So the item itself is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a license agreement between the city and Blue Ridge on Ice LLC. This is basically an agreement that provides for ice skating services that would take place from November 1st of 2022 to January 23rd, 2023. And basically it's a license agreement where this particular vendor is providing a service to the community. And what will happen is the city is providing a $15,000 advance for them to start up the business. Once that advance is paid off from the proceeds from the revenue from the ice skating services, then the revenue would be split 50-50 between the vendor and the city. And it's for that limited period of time, and it would take place at the farmers market. And the agreement provides for extensive insurance requirements, provides procedures for the payment, and the fact of what their operating costs are as well.
And I do want to add something to this too. We, as a city, we've looked at many ideas that we can have with our farmers market. And the farmers market during this time period is kind of a down period because it's pretty cold. And previous city administrator Bill Sowers actually suggested this and said this would be a wonderful place to have a ice skating rink, and it's something great for the kids in the community because they've been without a pool for several years. And this gives the kids in the area something to really look forward to in the wintertime. And as a city, it's something to me that I feel like we're giving back to the community. And I think that was one, I know Christie talked to her about it originally, and Angie and several people, and it feels like it's something good for the community. And, which is what I feel like our kids deserve that. So that's kind of our thinking on doing this particular project. And, anyway, we want to open it up for discussion amongst the council.
I guess the first question is, we're gonna do a $15,000 outlay to get it started, and the proceeds are gonna pay the city back the $15,000, correct?
Yeah, that would happen first before any split occurs.
Okay. Who owns the property? The ice rink. Who owns the ice rink?
Mr. Licker.
Mr. Licker. Is Mr. Luker here? Will you come to the podium, Mr. Luker? Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Luker then is going to split proceeds with us once the $15,000 is paid back to the city. So basically what we're doing is loaning Mr. Luker the money to start this thing, and then as it recoups the money, the money will come back to the city.
Correct.
And let me ask that, what we're really doing is creating infrastructure in the farmer's market that the city has to put in for the ice to be done. We're not, I mean, in essence, we're not really.
We're not
I mean,
loaning.
I look at it as
Yeah.
not lending money to the ice
Right.
thing, but the city putting in infrastructure that makes the ice thing work. And we have the right to every dime until we are made whole. Is that correct?
That's correct. And any expense that he incurs to use that $15,000, these guys submit invoices to the city so we can see what the money's being
Yeah,
used
for
for.
electrical wire, gas.
Right. I don't think any of us are talking about it, you know, in a negative light. We just have to make sure that the people understand, the citizens understand what we're doing here, and we're perfectly transparent in what we're doing here. I think anything we do at the farmer's market, or anything we do for the city and the citizens here is excellent. But we just have to steward it to make sure that everything's, so then once that's done, the equipment basically is his to start with. It's his when we leave. If it fails or something happens 3 years down the road and it's not working, what happens now?
Well, the agreement's only for just that period of time.
He will take
So
it down.
just the first year.
Yes.
So,
If we choose to do it again, we have to come back before the council.
okay. So we're only doing a few months,
Correct.
3 months.
and we're going to try to recoup $15,000 in a few months. Is that possible?
47 Diggins.
Mr. Blucher, will you tell your name, residence, and then you can speak to the economic.
My name is Rick Laird. I live at 1977 Mountain Tops Road in Blue Ridge, Louisiana. My background in residence here for about 14 years. Over the course of the last 35 years of my career, I've probably done close to 200 ice rinks around the world. And the last rink I did was for the state of Georgia at the Centennial Olympic Park for 25 years. I've done rinks at, I have a rink at the Memphis Zoo, I've got a rink at Bristol Works Speedway. I've done rinks for Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, in Tampa. We've done ice at, in Fort Walton Beach, for the city of Fort Walton Beach. I've done rinks in Sandusky, Florida. I've got a rink in Lake Tahoe, Basin Mountain, at Heavenly Valley. And I was the one that provided the equipment when we did the rink several years ago in the city.
And how did that do? Was it profitable?
Very well.
You were profitable in that.
Very well, yeah. Frankly, I haven't done a rink that wasn't profitable. We haven't really even touched on some of the other revenue opportunities, and the biggest one would be sponsorship.
Explain, please.
We can sell sponsorship on the statue walls to the merchants in town, and that revenue opportunity hasn't even been discussed yet. So if it's the $15,000 that we're worried about, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think that we would come out whole.
I'm not so concerned about the $15,000 as I am that we're spending that money for the city. I don't have a problem helping bring things like that to the city at all. I just wanna know where our stand is on it and what we're doing. And it appears that you know ice rinks.
I do.
You've done a few in the past. So that's kind of what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear your experience, how you think this will go, and how it's going to be for the city. Because I know we had it a few years ago, and it only lasted, what, one season, I believe, maybe two?
I think the city, partnered with that vendor for, I think it was 3 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so you weren't the one that put that in,
No, it was not. I oversaw the installation,
okay?
and this gentleman that did it used to work for me
Okay.
for a number of years.
but you weren't directly involved in it. You're going to be directly involved in this one. This is your undertaking. Okay.
And let me say, we approached Mr. Lukert, he didn't approach us because we wanted to offer this to our community. He didn't approach us about it. It was something that we wanted to look into because I felt like it was such a great opportunity for the kids. So, just, just so we know that, yeah. Yeah. Let me make one more statement also. This particular money would come from our tourism, hotel motel tourism fund, and that, you know, we're putting a lot of money out there for that. We can't, it has to go towards something of this nature, advertising or, you know, something. I would prefer to put it back into our kids than a billboard personally,
Absolutely.
or something of that nature.
Absolutely.
So I just feel like this is something good.
One thing though is,
Yes.
I would like to see if it could come out of the money that's sent to the chamber. Can't rather than out of our general fund, out of our regular unrestricted money.
Yeah.
I'd like to see if we can do that. I don't know that we can. but
Yeah, we can ask if they would be willing to contribute anything, so, okay? But if not, we proceed with that if that's good
Do you
with
have
you.
any questions, Kristen? Did it clear up everything for you? Okay.
Bill, do you have any?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay.
So you basically got 47 days that you're gonna be open for business here to do this, right?
Over the past, 25 years, I've kind of come to find out that when you do a holiday break, you are best served to start it around Thanksgiving. And once the children go back to school, they've also got everybody's got a mindset that spring is on its way and the ice skating is the last thing of the month. We've tried to stay open longer because we were so successful with those 47-day windows or whatever the holiday period worked out to be. We do the majority of our business over between Christmas and New Year's. I've skated upwards of 50,000 people in a season at Centennial Park in 45 days. We're not gonna do that here. But we'll be sufficient enough and we'll build a nice product if the community will enjoy it.
That's one of the concerns here. Okay, after 47 days, if $15,000 wasn't made, what happens then?
We haven't even addressed that because they never gave it a second concern. If you do the math, we've got 45 days. If we averaged 50 a day and didn't sell $1 in sponsorship, we could cover our costs very easily.
And,
How
and
many
not,
folks
oh,
does-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
How many folks does your ring accommodate? How many people can skate on it?
That size rink, you can probably skate, 125 people, 120 people at a time.
Can you teach old fat guys that have never skated how to skate?
I'm sorry?
Can you teach old fat guys who have never skated how to
Stop
skate?
talking about me.
I'm talking about me.
Hey, I did it a couple of years ago, so. I do want to make one other comment in talking about, you're talking about the revenue and real concerned about that. I feel like too, the city has a great opportunity. We have a wonderful concession stand over there. So we've talked about even selling drinks and, you know, you can have popcorn and hot dogs and you can have private parties. There are a lot of things there's so many things besides just individual.
We're
Yeah.
gonna approach this.
Yeah, and I think we've spoken with Joe, and there are several of them who are really excited. You know, they'll be working those areas and working concessions, and there's a lot of money to be made there. But again, my focus is it's not really for the money; it's for the kids, and but we will make money. I feel like so. Yeah. No.
So you had it out at
Christy,
Enola,
speaking to
right? You had it out at Enola? Okay, and how did it do there versus when it was, you don't have the numbers from when we had it in the city park?
I remember it earning right around 6 figures the first year when we did it at the city park. Nola didn't do that much. It's not a good place for an ice rink. And I told them that. It doesn't have great parking. this place over here at the farmer's market takes care of all of those answers. It's got new restrooms, it's got a concession stand, it's got cover. To keep the incandescent heat load off of the sun, off of the rink in the wintertime it's not the heat, it's the incandescent load from the sun that'll make your ice not fun to skate on. We were in a tent facility over there that I put in. But it wasn't the greatest venue for an ice skating rink. It was money.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one I think is perfect for an ice skating. It has, you're built up on concrete, which is going to keep it cold, and then covered, it's about perfect, so.
Bill has made a motion.
Okay, yes,
Did
we
you not,
made a
Ms.
motion.
Whaley? I will second that motion.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote on this one. Dr. Whaley? Angie?
Yes.
Yes.
Christie? And Bill?
Yes.
Okay, so motion passes 5-0. Thank you. I think that this will be a great opportunity for the kids in our community. So, and adults, as Jack's going to be there skating around.
Learning how to ice skate.
Uh-huh. So the next item on the agenda, reports, we'll have the Downtown Development Authority update and then the Blue Ridge Business Association. Angie, do you want to give the update on the downtown development?
Yes, we talked about, a mural ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's in process, and then, also the, oh goodness, I don't know what they call it, Susan, help me on the, 5G, yes, please, yeah.
Look,
Talk louder, Susan.
legal counsel.
I think so.
No, it's not on.
You ain't getting over there. It doesn't record it for the recording.
Here, Caesar.
That's fine.
Yeah, right up front. All right. Everybody hear me? Oh, that's better. Russell wanted to have a meeting with you and legal counsel to discuss with the people who want to come in and talk about the 5G setup downtown. So I don't know if he's contacted you yet, but we want to try to get that meeting moving as soon as possible. And I think the only other thing that we discussed a little bit about was the wayfinding signs. I know the council wanted to take that over and put that in their basket. Just asking, has anybody done anything about it? Do we have a timetable?
Let us work on that. I'll get with Angie on that.
Okay. The only other thing that I was gonna talk about was from the business association standpoint. The Old Timers Parade, I think if everybody, I don't know who went, but it was very big. We had over 70 vehicles in that parade. Probably a little more, cause I think we only counted one fire truck, and I think there were 7 of them in that parade. So it was really good. The other thing that we did this year, that was different from past years, the Seed and Feed band played on Saturday because they had other things going on the 4th. And that created a crowd downtown, which was really pretty good. And then after the parade, the actual parade on the 4th, the community band played in the park, which a lot of people went to, which I thought was also really good. And then the Scottish, it was a Scottish band that actually went to the park and played afterwards too. So that was pretty cool. So those two things were new kind of things that we haven't had before. And the guy who, Dr. Barnstad, who's from the high school, who did the community band, also would like to do more community band things in the park for the community outside of just the parade. So I think we're gonna talk about doing some more of those kind of things in the park, which I think would be very good. There was, no, having the community band play concerts in the park. So, we had a really good, I mean, a lot of people stayed after the parade to watch that band play. So it was really good, and I think that really encouraged him to the point where he'd really like to do some other things with the community band in the park, have some concerts through the fall. So we're gonna be talking about that. So I'll bring some of those dates to the council once we get those lined up.
Maybe some local bands that are new and upcoming.
We could, yeah. This one, I think, is, the local bands, that might be a future conversation for us in terms of how we wanna look at the gazebo that's in the, in the park right now. If we're gonna replace that, maybe we can replace that with something that would allow bands to come in and play and allow for, you know, grass seating and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Yeah, we have been talking about that.
Yeah, I remember some of those conversations, but since we now have bands who are willing to do that, especially, I think the community, I've never heard the community band before, but these are all people that live in Blue Ridge that come out and
They're
play.
good.
And they did a fantastic job. So I thought that was really good. The other thing we've got is, the Merry Little Christmas Party's coming up on October 1st. That's gonna be in the, farmer's market like it was last year. A little bit cooler this year, October 1st. But it's if you don't know, it is the fundraiser for Light Up Blue Ridge, which is for all of Blue Ridge. So we encourage you to come out, buy tickets, come dance, eat, have some fun.
It was a lot of fun last year.
Yeah, so it'll be really good. So that's all I have unless you guys have.
It showed off the venue very well.
It did. It was
the first,
beautiful.
it was the first activity we had in that venue.
Very nice.
It was beautiful. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any
Angie, did
questions?
you have anything else to add on DDA or anything?
Well, on the sign thing, so
Uh-huh.
I think it has been a while, so we did do
Mhm.
something, and so maybe if you and Eric and me and Heather and whoever else is interested in this, could get together and decide how to get this thing going.
What sign thing is you referring
The wayfinding.
The signs that we.
Wayfinding
that we
signs.
did on the 60,000
Wayfinding.
to? Okay.
So we gotta figure out what we do want.
Yeah, we'll schedule that.
Just so you know, and what brought it to my attention is, as you know, I have a store downtown, and this past 4th of July weekend, I still get comments from people saying, you know, we didn't know where to go, we didn't know where to, you know, we drove around for, 30 minutes trying to figure out where we're supposed to go. So we've needed it for years, so.
Yeah.
I'd hate to see it die.
I would, yeah. I just got back from Breckenridge and it's very clear where you need to go with districts and parking and everything. It's very clear, so. Okay, thank
Good.
you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're moving on to public comments. I have 2 people on the list, and then if anyone else wants to speak, you'll have 3 minutes. First one is Shahab Fard. I believe that's correct. Is he here? Okay. Brian Higgins wants to speak about sidewalks adjacent to farmers market. So Brian, will you come up, please? Just tell us who you are, even though I've just said your name.
There you go, Brian.
My name is Brian Higgins, and what I'm kind of proposing is to be able to join basically 2 streets together. So if we start at kind of the top left, we have sidewalks that basically run the entire length of First Street and then also Main Street. And starting at Fannin Brewery Company, which is up there basically adjacent from Sue's, the sidewalk runs the entire way all the way down to essentially the farmer's market at the Save Lot. Now, of course, there are parking lots that interrupt that at times, but it still basically provides a safe passageway for pedestrians to basically walk the entire town. If we look at Main Street, starting at the Pedigo, which is again on the very outskirts of town, the sidewalks come all the way down past Grumpy Old Man Brewery and ends at excuse me, the Canoe Building, which is essentially that kind of curved building that's right in the middle of Main and First. So what we're missing, each one of those is roughly 1.1 miles according to Google. But what we're missing is a connection between those two. We do have some side streets depending on where you're at, but with all the stuff that's coming into the farmer's market, it would be nice to be able to tie them together somewhere in that area. So what I'm looking at in the essentially the third picture is adding basically a crosswalk. If you look at the very top of the picture, top right, so that would be coming from, say, the Save Lot area, crossing over, that will get you safe passage into the farmers market building. And then you can come out the basically that secondary entrance or exit, depending on how you look at it. And basically we had a crosswalk right there across Mineral Springs Road, and then that would get you to the White Path building. And here's where it kind of gets a little bit tricky, but it would be nice if we could have a sidewalk of some sort kind of on that front lawn of the farmers market building. So I talked to Commissioner Hensley about it, and basically what he's telling me is that what we know is First Street is also 76, Highway 76, which is a state road, and so there's a 30-foot right-of-way from the center line. So it might be possible to construct a sidewalk right there, and then finally have another crosswalk at the bottom, which gets us over to the canoe. So basically, we're making not quite a loop, but we're tying everything together. And the reason I say that is, again, because so much stuff is coming to the farmers market. We have a Chalk Festival coming up. That's something that I'm hosting, and we're going to have sponsorships, of course, for people to come in, have murals commissioned, and Chris, I'll just use you as an example. But like if you had a mural commissioned and it's Blueberry Jerky, well, as people see that, they may want to come visit your store. Well, how do they get there? They either get in their car, drive around for 30 minutes, like say, or find a parking space. But if
Time is up, but we get your point, sir. I think that's great. We'll get this Eric and thank you, Eric. Thank you so much, Brian, for thinking of this. Good idea. Most certainly. And thank you also for your contribution for the Chalk Art Festival. That will be good. Okay, so do we have anyone else in the audience who would like to, who has a public comments this time? Anyone? Okay. Yeah, just, you can, come up and then just give your name and speak at this one, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Sam Walker. I live here in Fannin County. One thing, if you're looking at doing something like this, there used to be a T1 transportation grant that, because it touches DOT, and they will help with the funding on that. So if you want to pursue this, you might look also into a T1 grant and see if DOT will provide some funding for sidewalks.
Well, thank you, Sam. Appreciate that. Okay, any other public comments? Okay, so we do need to enter to executive session to discuss litigation and personnel. Do I have a motion? Okay, so we're not adjourning, we're just going in. Okay. Yes, pause to go into executive. Do I have a second on that? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes 5-0.